Tonight, we're here to honor greatness. We're here to honor leaders who have opened doors for others in our movement as we strive to have a much better, more diverse, equitable, and inclusive movement serves all our communities. And it's frankly a personal honor for me to have been asked to recognize Pablo Defilippi. Pablo Defilippi, many of you, probably most of you know, is the Senior Vice President over at Inclusiv. And Pablo has United States from Chile back in the 90s. And right when he first got to the United States, he started working in the credit union movement and quickly went on to work at Lower East Side People's Federal Credit Union in New York City. As many of you know, Lower East Side People's Credit Union has been a leader in the area of economic inclusion and bringing fair financial products to communities that are often overlooked throughout the country, and they've been nationally recognized. And much of that work was started by Pablo when he was the CEO and manager of that credit union. But he didn't stop there. You know, most people have one great achievement like that. He went on to continue breaking down barriers, and he's been at Inclusiv for over 15 years. During that time, there are so many accomplishments that Pablo has laid that have helped communities of color and helped the credit union movement bring financial inclusion to our communities and to bring financial inclusion to communities that are often overlooked. In 2009, he was key to Inclusiv, at the time the National Federation of Community Development Credit Unions, creating a capital initiative that brought over $70 million of capital to low-income communities. And he was key to bringing the Juntos Avanzamos program from Texas to the whole nation at Inclusiv, through Inclusiv, helping credit unions better understand the needs and the things that the Hispanic communities and immigrant communities needed, and better understand that and bring financial inclusion to those communities. Recently, he was key to helping advocate for over $12 billion of direct aid and capital and grants to credit unions, CDFIs, and minority deposit institutions. Most recently, on top of all that, out of that pocket, and over the last 2 years after Hurricane Maria, Pablo was key to bringing over $60 million in grants to my homeland of Puerto Rico after the hurricane happened. The last thing I'll say is that Trailblazers open doors for people. On a personal note, I've known Pablo for over 15 years. When he met me, I had hair, I was young, and I was a young kid that had a lot of ideas, and Pablo was always there to mentor me, to give me sound advice, to help lift me up. And yes, we made history this year, but that would not have happened without people like Pablo, who have given themselves to people of color, to lift our communities, to lift our young professionals. So Pablo, it is such an honor, it is humbling to present to you today the DEI Trailblazer Award.
Wow, Juanito, thank you so much. Really, really appreciate your words. I was thinking, who's this guy he's talking about? Sounds really nice. I'm really humble, actually, because you set up to do things without thinking about, doing something that may become a legacy or something, right? It's just you do what you do, thinking that it's the way that you can make an impact on your coworkers, on your community. So it's nice to kind of hear back, some of the things that we have accomplished. But none of that has happened in a vacuum. It's all been part of a teamwork, right? We all have done amazing things, but the team is really what makes that happen. So in terms of this, DEI conversation, I really think that timing is everything. We're having this conversation around diversity, equity, and inclusion at a really critical moment in the country. Last week, the Census Bureau shared that white, non-Hispanic Americans now account for less than 6 in 10 people in the US. And they're no longer the racial ethnic majority in 13% of US counties. Let's really think about that. Because this is something we have all been, talking about for a long time, but thinking this is going to happen for decades ahead. But this is happening now in many, many communities across the country. So this conversation is more important than ever for us. This is really the time to double down on our efforts to build a more diverse movement that more closely mirrors the nation, right? Many credit unions already operate in what is called majority-minority counties, and over the next few years, many more will find themselves in the same situation. So DEI is an imperative, and I truly believe that our future and relevance as an industry, as a movement, will be determined by how well we transform ourselves to really reflect the communities we serve. Luckily, we have a strong foundation to build from. Inclusiv, the African American Credit Union Coalition, and the National Association of Latino Credit Unions and Professionals have been for a long time at the forefront of these efforts. Way before DEI, as Angela mentioned, became a buzzword, right, in our industry. So we also have over 500 minority designated credit unions. I really ask you to support these institutions, to help build their capacity, and together expand our reach in multi-ethnic communities. This is really an amazing foundation for us to use and to support and to grow. It's up to us really to take advantage of this foundation. We're also so fortunate to have incredible, passionate, and charismatic leaders who are working so hard to transform our movement. Leaders such as Maurice Smith, who's made such a remarkable contribution to our industry. What better way to ensure that DEI lives on than to codifying it as that 8th principle? That's going to be a reminder every day that this is something that we have to embrace and we have to celebrate. And Angela Russell, who's been such an incredible inspiration and a driver behind the DEI conversation within the industry. And to top it all, I'm sharing this stage with my own organization, Inclusiv, led by the incomparable Kathy Martin, which has been addressing financial inequality for so many years. So I'm really in the company of giants here, and these giants are really an amazing resource for our industry. I'm gonna just talk a little bit about my own journey here, because if the definition of luck is being at the right place at the right moment, then I really feel like a lucky guy. In many ways, I stumbled into credit unions when I arrived in this country in the early 90s. The very first thing that my dad made me do was to open an account in El Banquito de la Esquina, right? That was the Lower East Side People's Federal Credit Union. And that was the first CDCU in the country to open because of a Community Reinvestment Act challenge. I had no idea that years later I would end up running that credit union. But my introduction to the industry came equally by accident through a job training that Joy Coast Miner, someone who's another giant in our movement, someone who hopefully many of you still remember, did on behalf of the National Federation of Community Development Credit Unions that was supporting a job training program for inner city residents. Cliff Rosenthal, who's probably in the audience, may remember very well that program and what Joy Coast Miner did. But that was my introduction to credit unions. Because of that, I became introduced to municipal credit union. I actually work under Bill Porter. So I feel like I've been blessed to know all these amazing people who have guided guided me, who have inspired me, and who have given me the opportunity to do what I do. And managing the Lower East Side People's Credit Union showed me firsthand that credit unions are the best mechanism to empower financially underserved communities and to address the systemic barriers that deprive minority communities from the tools we need to build assets and achieve financial security. That's really the power of credit unions. We can do this many times over, and we can do it in a way that is sustainable, in a way that is impactful. I've been blessed to be part of an organization as mission-driven as Inclusiv. Because of that, I've been able to make a bigger impact. As Juan mentioned, in 2010, we were able to channel $70 million in secondary capital. And that money, those 70 million, originated billions of dollars in lending in minority and low-income communities. That was really a tipping point for many credit unions that understood, that saw the value of the CDFI certification. And since then, the number of CDFI credit unions has grown dramatically. Today, we're looking at an unprecedented level of resources available to CDFI certified MDI and low-income designated credit unions, 12 billion, that will exponentially increase these institutions' capacity to serve minority and low-income communities. This is really an incredible moment for us. And I have to express our gratitude to CUNA Mutual Group for their incredible support of this work. Bob Tronso, you have an amazing team. Your team rocks in so many ways. And to my ASU family, mi amiga Renee, Chairman Sewell, I can't thank you enough for this recognition. I really appreciate it, and I want to dedicate this to my family, to my wife and my 2 kids who have unconditionally supported my work. They are the reason I'm able to do what I do. Thanks again. Let's do this. Be bold, be mindful, be brave. Sí se puede.
Thank you so much, Pablo, for all that you have done, for all of those words, and congratulations for being an award recipient tonight.